welcome to the Rock Your Dream Body and Dream Life interview series. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with Stephanie Kwong. So let me just tell you a little bit about Stephanie. She is a transformational life coach and inspirational speaker. Stephanie's inner fuel is love, and her mission is to empower and inspire people to love themselves, to break through their fear, and to live their highest vision. Through her work, people take back their personal power by transforming their perceptions and self-imposed limitations in their mind, body, and spirit so they can be unapologetically who they are and unleash their magic to the world. Stephanie believes that we all have the power to elevate the world through elevating ourselves. So welcome, Stephanie.
Thank you. Happy to be here with you.
I'm so excited to have this conversation because this is like, oh my gosh, again, like every one of these interviews just takes it to the next level. And I'm so pumped about talking about this stuff. So just to begin, why don't we talk about how you went through your journey to really rocking your dream life by your definition?
So rocking my dream life, it's been an interesting thing. I think we all have a dream life, but it's always seems like it's something that's out there that it's hard to have, or we have to do something in order to feel worthy of receiving it. And I know that that was my mindset for a really long time. Even the way that I was raised and trained, it's like, well, when you do this, then you deserve this, right? So it's like, in order to have that dream life that I want, this picture that I created, I have to be this or do that in order for it to happen. And it was actually through my journey of self-love, like really getting to the core and the heart of the matter, that actually I'm worthy of whatever it is that I say that I want. First of all, that actually allowed me to live into my dream life. Instead of it being something out there, it became something I began to embody. And then the second thing is it actually had my dream life become even more expansive, right? Because a lot of times I think when we think of what our dream life is, we only think in terms of when we know how we can make it happen, right? Instead of like, no, you know what? I can make anything happen. I don't know how it's going to, but because I love myself enough and I believe in myself enough that my dream life can be as big and bad as I want it to be. So yeah, that's been my journey. A big part of it is self-love, and elevating my mindset has been huge, like really believing in what's possible.
Yeah. And so what I'm hearing there is this idea of self-imposed limitations, really, like these beliefs that block us from stepping into those desires that are so big and beautiful, but oftentimes we just kind of stamp them out because we just, for whatever reason, are scared. So can you talk a little bit about how you help your clients to work through those self-imposed limitations?
Absolutely. So we have these self-imposed limitations. A lot of times, people might know or not, but a lot of it is from our childhood, right? Being told what we can and what we cannot do is really the conversation of our parents. Like, if they don't see something as possible, they'll put that thought that they believe onto you. And then you start to go, oh, I guess it's not possible. And from birth till 8 years old, you are in a complete hypnotic state. Like, you are just absorbing and saying yes to whatever people are telling you, which is why you believe in Santa Claus and why you believe in the Easter Bunny, because you're like, okay, sure. So you don't really have the ability to say, no, that's not true. And so all these limitations of who we are, whether they tell you you're not fast enough, you're not smart enough, you're not, skinny enough, you're not this enough, we start to believe these limitations. And we start to believe them as our truth. So, and what these limitations do is it stops us in our tracks. When we believe them, and all beliefs are really is it started as a thought. But because we kept repeating the thought, and especially if you have a high emotional charge to that thought, that's when it deepens into our subconscious mind and becomes a belief, even though it's not the truth. But sometimes it feels like the truth, right? So really, supporting clients into breaking through self-imposed limitations is having them, one, uncover, where the heck did this even come from? Like, is this really my thought about myself? Do I, is it my truth, or is it someone else's truth that was imposed upon me?
Yeah.
And so once they get really clear about where did this limitation even come from, you know, the second piece is starting to gather evidence to go, hold on one second. Is this really the truth? Because when people say like, I'm a failure, and I go, well, let's look for all the evidence that shows that you're not a failure. And as you look through history, it's like, wow, I went to school, I graduated from college, I have great friends around me, I have, I'm taking great care of my health. So all these things that they've succeeded at, that it's like, boom, let's get rid of that self-imposed limitation. And now what do you want to create for yourself moving forward that's going to empower, inspire, enliven you towards what you want, that dream life, that dream body, whatever it is. So that's kind of a start. There's a lot of different techniques and tools on how to get people there, but that's the first place to look at is first, where's the root? Where did this even come from? Mm-hmm. And challenging that as whether that's your truth or not. And most of the time it's not.
Yeah. So two things come to mind when you say that. So number one, my grandma, bless her heart, she was, always coming from a good place. She's always trying to protect and take care of everyone. But one of her sayings was, you don't want to do that, do you? And so it's almost like she's positioning it like, that's a bad idea. Don't do that, And so I would be like, oh. And after a while, I kind of became aware of it and I would laugh at her. But, that's the kind of like programming that we have around us that a lot of times we take as fact, or, we think, oh, well, if they think it's a bad idea, it must be a bad idea, versus checking in with ourselves. And the second thing I was thinking about is, imagine if these people who have been these huge change makers in the world believed the facts that we're told. You think back and you're like, when you were little, it was a fact that Santa Claus was real. And you think about like, it was a fact that the world is flat, and it was a fact that airplanes can't fly. And now look at all these things that have become true, even though before it was a fact.
Mm-hmm. And there ain't no facts about those things, right?
Yeah. So it's cool to show yourself, like, just because someone else says that that's true doesn't necessarily mean that it's true, especially if something inside of you says that it could be different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's why also too, I always encourage clients to surround themselves with people who believe in their dreams, or at least the very thing is, one of my best friends, I remember in high school, she was sharing something with me and I kind of poo-pooed it a little bit, but I realize now in hindsight, I was doing that because that was my own limitation that I had in my mind of whether that was possible for her or not, or if that was realistic. And I remember she said to me, she goes, look, friends don't always have to believe in your dreams, but they always have to support you in them. Right? So I've learned to keep my mouth shut. And the thing is, actually, I believe in anything that is possible. So whenever people tell me something, I'm like, yes, do it. Amazing. It's possible. And I have story after story of, when you can see that things are possible, but, really taking the time to surround yourself with people who say, yes, just go for it. Mm-hmm. Because that's actually knowing that you're hanging out with people who have a mindset of possibility.
Yes.
Right. Mm-hmm. Versus whenever someone says, oh, why would you do that? Or how are you going to make that happen? I realize their mindset is not possible. Mm-hmm. Doesn't mean that it's not, but in their context, it's not. So, when people say, well, I don't know if this is possible because so-and-so said this, I'm like, well, that's their own self-imposed limitations that they're trying to put on you. But it doesn't mean, again, that that's truth or fact. What is yours? What do you want to believe?
Yeah. Well, I was just going to say, we tend to care so much about what other people think, and I love that you say that, to be unapologetically ourselves and unleash our magic to the world. Like, that's amazing. And I think we all want to do that. And at the same time, we limit ourselves by putting so much value in what other people say and think about what we're doing. And so how do you start to disconnect yourself even further and allow yourself to be that unapologetic version, even if people say things or judge, or, that fear is there?
Yeah. Well, people are going to judge anyway, right? We judge too. We can't help it. There's people that we like. There's people that we don't like. There's things that, we think are good, and there's things that we think are bad. But they're just our opinions. And again, most of it's from the conditioning that we were given. So it doesn't make it right or wrong. But again, learning to really be unapologetically yourself and unleashing your magic comes back to the core of the matter. Again, it's that self-love. When you love yourself enough, you're not worried about what other people think. You're not worried about whether you're doing things right or wrong. You're only worried about, how do I feel about this? You know, and the two biggest human fears that every person on this planet has is the fear of not being enough and the fear of not being loved. So a lot of the things that we're doing constantly, these survival mechanisms that we create to try to get love or to try to show that we're enough, are all because we're avoiding that fear that we don't want to believe that we're not enough or that we're not loved. But again, lies. And the thing is that if you fill yourself up with enough love, when you own in your heart and soul that I am enough just, and I'm so worthy just because I exist, because that's how God created us, or the universe or source, whatever it is that people want to believe in. But when you're filled up with that internally, you don't need to try to get that love externally anymore. And that love that we're trying to get externally is the reason why we won't be unapologetically ourselves, because we're afraid if I, am unapologetic with myself, or I am authentically expressing who I really am, what if they don't like me? Mm-hmm. And when we can banish that and love ourselves enough to know, I don't need love from other people. I only need it from me. I got it from me. So guess what? Here I go. I'm going to fly. I'm going to be my authentic self and actually be that example that other people can do that too. Because I think that's really what every human being craves so badly. Because when you're self-imposed limitations or being inauthentic is like a cage. It's like a cage that you're pacing back and forth and you want to be out of it, but you don't know how to get out of it, because if you do, you might rock the boat.
Yeah.
And people just are so scared again to lose that love, feel like they're not enough if they rock the boats, and then they constrict.
And it's not even love. It's like that validation, like real love is unconditional, right? But what we're talking about is like the corporate woman who feels like she has no options and she has to do all of these things that are on her plate, and she's so scared to ask for a day off or say no to some project or ask for help, or the mom who's trying to take care of everybody else, and what happens is her needs end up on the lists, like, last, really. Mm-hmm. And then you end up showing up as this like empty version of yourself in all of those different experiences because you're so depleted, versus if you were to take a stand and give yourself that permission to say, I need help, or I need to simplify, or whatever that is, so that I can take care of myself, then 9 times out of 10, that allows you to be that much more effective and whole when you show up, versus this like never-ending hamster wheel that we try to stay on in order to people please, in order to make other people happy.
Yeah, absolutely. And when I teach about self-love, there's 8 different principles, right? Self-acceptance, self-compassion, self-forgiveness, self-trust, self-appreciation, self-respect, self-permission, you touched on that, and then receiving. And these are ways of being with ourselves that we've never been trained or taught. And instead, like you're mentioning, these women, these corporate women or mothers and women in general, we're taught to give, and put yourself last, mm-hmm. And you're right. When we give ourselves permission to fill ourselves up, to make ourselves a priority, we're actually doing other people a favor because we're giving from a whole place instead of a depleted place, right? And we're setting the example mm-hmm. for generations to come, boys and girls, that, you can give yourself full permission to be kind to yourself, to make yourself a priority. Of course, not when it's hurting someone else, but that you're worthy enough. And that's the bottom line to all of that anyway, is a worthiness conversation.
Yeah. That's the thing that I think shifts women's perspective so much, especially when they're a mother, when we have this conversation and they say like, I don't know what to do. I don't have time to take care of myself. And I say, I understand how you feel, but think about it like this, like what sort of example are you showing your daughter, or what sort of example are you showing your son, for what it looks like to be someone, a parent who's not taking care of themselves, who's putting everyone else, in front of themselves. And when they start to see that, like, really this is about being an example for them so that they know how to take care of themselves, then it like clicks, and then they're suddenly so much more available to make those changes. Yeah.
It's so funny because it's still a trick, right? We say that to the mothers, like, do this for your kids, but still we're doing it for our kids instead of just like, do it for yourself first and then be the role model too. But what you're saying is so on point, right? Because going back to the way our mind works from birth till 8 years old, we are forming all of our belief systems about the world, about how we're supposed to be, about ourselves. And where we learn most of this, we do learn it from society and from culture and from peers and whatnot. But the most important are our role models, our parents. So we observe their behaviors and we go, oh, okay. Well, like you said, she doesn't take care of herself, so I don't have to. Oh, she allows people to be rude to her and yell at her, so I guess I should do that too. So when you start to set those boundaries, when you start to take care of yourself, when you're being self-loving or self-respectful, you are modeling those things for your kids and locking that in to their subconscious mind for them to take as their beliefs to move forward in life and to be effective human beings versus, again, ineffective or feeling not enough, self-imposed limitations, all that again.
Yeah, and you can apply it to everything, like your relationship with your body, your relationship to your job or your career, or your business, your relationship to your spouse, your relationship to your bank account, your money, like how you spend money. Kids are paying attention to everything. And I think, like, when we think about it like that, it's like, oh, what would I want to teach someone else? What example would I want to be? And I remember myself, I have 2 younger sisters, and I think I was like 16 at the time or something like that. My sister would have been like 8, maybe I was 15 and she was a little younger. But there was one day where I was asking her if she wanted to have a snack, and she's a skinny little, twig. At the time, she's still a twig, but she was so little and tiny. And she came up to me and I was like, do you want me to give you some, like, I think it was cheese puffs or something like that? And she's like, no, Sheila, I don't want to eat those because I don't want to get fat. And I was like, oh, you got that from me. Like, it was either me or my mom, but probably me. And I just thought, oh my God. My heart broke because I realized, like, they are so paying attention all of the time.
Everything. And, that goes for definitely moms and for kids. But I also really want to say that even if you don't have children right now, it's still a way to model how other people are allowed to treat you.
Yes.
Right? Based off of how am I being with myself? Because if you're at the job, like you said, and you don't want to ask, for what you need, you're actually telling people in the office, like, oh, don't worry about me. She's got it. And I can give her all the work or whatever it is that's you're suffering with because you're not willing to express your needs.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then feeling resentful for it. Or our friends, I know for the longest time, I didn't actually believe I was worthy to receive anything from people, even acknowledgments, let alone like a gift, right? And a lot of times my friends would ask me, like, what do you need? I'm like, oh, no, I'm fine. Don't worry about me. What do you need? Mm-hmm. And so I trained them to think like I'm always there for them, whatever they need. And when I hit my dark moments, I got to affirm the belief of, see, look, no one's here for me. I have nobody to call. Nobody really cares. And it was because of my own belief of not, feeling worthy. And I trained people around me that I was all good. I put on a little perfect mask, and really, again, I was the one that was suffering. So, really, when we treat ourselves in a certain way, it's modeling to other people not only how to be like our children or our friends even, right? Because our friends learn from us too, or family members, but also it's training the people around us to say, this is what's acceptable and not acceptable and how to be with, you. So. Really
Yeah.
important.
Yeah. And so how do we start making those kinds of changes? Like when we become aware of that, what really would be like the first step?
Um, you mean to have people start being with us differently, or?
To start elevating yourself, like you said, like, to be that example. I think awareness is key.
Huge. It's the first step to anything, like any sort
Yeah.
of change. Yeah.
And then you start to have communication and you start to express your emotions and how you're feeling, and asking for them to be available for you in that way. Or what do you usually suggest for your clients on how to start being in that receiving mode, to open yourself up in that way?
Yeah. Well, it's the first thing is starting with self, like starting to give to yourself in ways that you never have before, right? So if there's something that you want that you would never buy for yourself, but you're like, but I've always wanted that, go get that. If you would love to take the time to go walk down to the beach, but you're telling yourself you can't have that because you have so much work to do, so you should stay in and just be glued to your laptop, you know what? Take the however much time and go down the beach and give that to yourself. So it always starts with self. Thinking about what would nourish me, what would fill me up first, and then being that person to give to you. And like reparenting yourself too, right? Being that parent that not that you wish you had, but I think a lot of times there are things that we wish we received in our childhood that we never got, and giving ourselves that first. And then, starting small, because I have some clients who are like, I can never speak my truth, or I can never ask her what I need. And having them go, okay, well, what's something small that you don't feel would be as much of an imposition, right? That they're like, okay, I would be willing to do that first. And then having them have the courage. And usually I'll do accountability. I'm like, all right, by when, and then they'll have a specific date that they'll actually do it by. And having them be aware of what stories are popping up in their mind as they're doing it, checking it again to be, is it real or not? And then also, sometimes I'll even say, why don't you ask for feedback from the people that you've requested something from, right? So that they can actually understand that people want to give, but a lot of times people don't know how.
Yeah.
So, and what most of my clients come back with are like, oh my God, I can't believe it. But, my mom was so excited she was able to do something for me, or my friend or my coworker, they said that it made them feel good, that they could give back because I'm always giving to them. And then you can see them light up. And I go, great, keep doing what lights you up, right? And slowly but surely they build that level of self-worth and the ability to receive more and more.
Yeah. I think one of the ways that we can most show ourselves that self-love is by investing in ourselves first and foremost. Like that's what I'm hearing from you. And not necessarily just money, but time, like going for a walk. That's investing in ourselves, like giving ourselves permission to do those kinds of things is like that outward, experience of us saying, I am important, my needs matter, and I need to take care of myself and give myself these things that allow me to fill my cup.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, it's really all about, to me, transforming the conversations that we allow to reside in our minds that are ineffective, right? So finding what doesn't work anymore. Mm-hmm. What do I actually want? What's in my way? And what do I need to let go of so I can move from this point to that point and actually have what I want manifest, right? Your dream life, your dream body, your dream mate, anything that you want. And we're all so deserving of anything and everything that we want in our life. It takes a lot of reprogramming to believe that for many people, not all. But really, it's just deep diving into the crevices of our subconscious and going, what's in there? Let me take a look, and whatever's outdated or not yours, get rid of it. And it takes some time, though, to do the reprogramming, but it's possible.
Yeah. And let's talk about the brain and how it works, because I think that a lot of times we find ourselves in those spots where we feel like, oh my God, I'm here again, right? We were talking about this a little bit before we got started. Like, man, what's wrong with me? How come I can't get over this? And we think there's something like seriously like
Wrong. Yeah.
broken within us. And that's not the case. So let's talk about why that happens.
Yeah. So, I'm going to give just a brief history of how our brain is created and how it works. So when you are born, there is a part of your brain called your primitive mind. It's your fight flight instinct, right? And then again, as I mentioned earlier, from birth till about 8 years old, you are like a sponge. You're absorbing everything. You're in a total hypnotic state, saying yes to whatever's coming your way and creating associations to things in your life. But around, and that's your subconscious mind. And that subconscious mind is about 90% of your mind power. And actually Bruce Lipton, who's like a neuroscientist, amazing guru of the brain as well as spirituality, he says that it might actually be up to 95% of that's how much whatever's already locked into our subconscious mind is what is the thing that guides us in life. Now, after 8 years old, or approximately that time, you start to form your conscious mind. And that's all of your logic, your reasoning, your analyzation, and your decision making and your willpower, the one thing that doesn't really work when you want it to. But that is your conscious mind. And that's about 10% of your mind power. Or if we look at Bruce's statistics, it's about 5%. So what happens when you're trying to create a change? You have a thought. This thought comes into your conscious mind. You've thought about it. You have all the logic, the reasoning. You've analyzed it. You've made the decision. You're like, today is the day. I'm going to make the change. I'm going to choose a new belief. This is it. But then, and remember that's 10%, right? So then that thought comes in. You've done all of that. And then your subconscious mind goes, whoa, 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 whoa. Hold on one second. Let me just jump right into your subconscious mind and check your programming, what you've done in the past. So it looks in there and like, nope, you don't believe you can have it. Nope, you're not worthy of it. Nope, this is what you've always been doing. And then it kicks that thought out. Mm-hmm. So a lot of emotional issues that people, and then that's when people go, oh, what's wrong with me? I must be broken. I can't create the change. Well, you know what? You got 10% mind power battling against 90%. It's your programming. It's not your fault. It's like it's like David and Goliath. But David can prevail if you stay persistent and keep doing the work to elevate your mindset, to love yourself, and to truly change the beliefs in your subconscious mind. But there was something else I wanted to say, but I forgot. But yeah, that's the cause of most people's emotional issues, right? It's the battle of your conscious and subconscious.
Yeah.
When you actually are clear about this, you realize like, oh, it's not my fault. And what your subconscious is doing is trying to keep everything status quo. Like we don't like change at all.
Yeah, because change is unsafe.
It's unsafe. Yeah.
Uncertainty. Yeah.
Yeah. Anything that is not a known to you, meaning that you've already been exposed to it, even if it's something that's negative, it's uncomfortable. So if, say, people have known depression for so long, like it's so conditioned into their being, they've just habituated that emotion, that happiness is like an unknown. It's weird. Let's kick it out.
Yeah.
Right. And that's how we get stuck into these certain states, but it's possible to change them.
Do you ever find, so there's definitely been times in my life where I've caught myself where I'll have this problem and then that problem will go away. And then I'll be like, oh, I got to focus on that. And then you focus on the next problem. And it's almost like you're looking for this thing to focus on that's like a problem, because you're so used to being problem focused that you literally, like, you could go your entire life by looking for these things that are not perfect and like going in and trying to fix them and like putting all your attention there, versus being like, there's all of this that's going so well. And if I put my attention there, that's going to help you to start building that subconscious muscle. That's so much more important than like trying to strong arm using that little 10% on all of these little surface things.
100%. So there's so many different things that come up for me when you said that. First of all is our brains are wired for survival, which is why we do look at the negative. And part of our culture is conditioning us to do that, right?
Yeah.
We live in a world of scarcity and not enoughness. And so we're wired to look at our problems and issues all the time because we're trying to survive in some way. But also, I just lost my train of thought. Another thing too is, if your brain is conditioned that way, but we're also trying to consistently relive and be right about the stories, about the beliefs, about whatever we've programmed into our subconscious mind, which is why we're looking for those things that will validate the beliefs that we have deep in the core of our mind, but again, until where you create the transformation is exactly what you said. Focus on what you want. And it takes some reprogramming to do it because, again, we've been so focused on what we don't want that you're like, oh, that looked that way. And then you're like automatically like, you're like, no, keep what you want, right?
Yes.
And condition, and everything is a habit. Happiness is a habit. Depression is a habit. Unless, I work with women who have borderline personality disorders. So there is definitely, for some, a chemical imbalance. But for the most part, most people in our society have just habituated themselves into certain states, into certain mindsets. And to shift it is by looking at what you do want. Because when you do that too, and you're focusing on it and taking actions towards it, guess what? It starts to become a known for you.
Yes.
Start to create new neural pathways in your brain that are having it become familiar. The more you keep looking at what you want, focusing on it, doing the right mental programming to condition it into your subconscious mind and taking action towards it, well, eventually over time, that starts to take over the old belief systems. So for me, it's not about like, let's get rid of, these negative thoughts, because what you're doing again is when you resist it, you're actually enlarging them again because your focus is on there. Instead, exactly what you said, shift your focus to what you want. Become like a pit bull with it and go like, I just want, I'm going to focus on the good, all that's good and right about me.
Yeah.
All that's I'm worthy and deserving of. All the possibilities that I can create in my life because I say so.
Yes. Visualizing like how good it really could get.
Totally. Yeah. And I want to give a quick tip too for people when they are starting to reprogram their mind, is at nighttime, about 30 minutes before you go to sleep, and 30 minutes when you wake up, your mind actually goes into a natural state of hypnosis. I'm actually trained to be a hypnotherapist, or a trained hypnotherapist too. So that's why I'm like so obsessed with the mind, if you can't tell, and we're talking so much about it. But when you are in that magic 30, I call it, your critical filter is relaxed. The critical mind of like, nope, right? Your mind is relaxed, and whatever suggestions you drop into your mind at that time go into your subconscious. It's like a tricky way of being able to do reprogramming.
Yeah.
But the challenge is what happens when most people go to sleep. What do they think of?
Worries.
Yeah.
They watch TV or the news.
Who they're pissed off about, what they didn't do for the day, what they have to do tomorrow, how stressed out they are about it, who didn't call them back, blah, blah,
They
blah.
look at Facebook and they think, oh my God, all these other people have such great lives and I don't.
Yeah. Right? Yeah. And then they fall asleep to that. Their subconscious mind marinates on that crap for however long they sleep for. It goes deeper into your subconscious. And then you keep wondering, like, why do I keep having the same things, the same feelings, the same thoughts? Well, you're programming your mind at that time, at night and in the morning. So I always say to people, when you go to bed, like either read positive content or say your affirmations, or there's so many different things that I do with clients to reprogram. But just the bottom line is whatever's positive, what you want to believe about yourself, it's a powerful time to visualize your dream life, and seeing it as if it's happening and feeling those feelings as if it's happening before you go to bed. That starts to get it into your subconscious faster.
Yeah.
And same thing in the morning. Because when people pop their eyes open in the morning, what do? They grab their phone and then they're like, oh my God, let me check Facebook again. Who didn't text me back? Or did I get caught? Like, they're checking your phones, or again going, oh God, what do I have to do today? I'm so stressed. I have to go into the office, or my kid's this, or all these things. And then in this time when your mind is open, when your subconscious can receive suggestions, they're dropping in all the negative stuff. So take that time. The moment you open your eyes, start giving gratitude.
Yes.
Start programming those things that you want to believe. Start really, like you said, focus on all that you want in that time. Especially, I obviously do it throughout the entire day. Remember, keep your, that way all day long. But especially during these critical times when your mind is wide open and going, yes, okay, whatever you want to put in, give it to me. Give it the good stuff.
Yeah, I love that. And it really is like a muscle that you have to practice consistently working over time. And I love that you're tying this back to science and really telling people this is not just woo-woo stuff. It's not just about spiritual, head in the clouds stuff. It's like, no, you're reprogramming the way your brain works. Like a lot of this emotional stuff really does have very specific responses within the brain, within the body. And when we understand that from that level, then it makes even more sense of how important it is and why it's literally something you should plug into your calendar and do, and make yourself shut the phone off, read something that's going to fill you up and make you focus on those things that you do want to create for your life.
Absolutely. I mean, again, science has shown study after study after study the neuroplasticity of our brain, right? We can create new belief systems, new patterns, new habits, new emotional patterns as well. And if you actually take the time to do it, it will work, like you said, because how often do people commit to making sure they create space to go out at night with their friends, right? That's in the calendar. Or how often they make sure their workouts are in, but they don't do the mental workouts. And then they wonder why things aren't changing. Well, guess what? This is the thing that runs the show of what comes into your life, what you create, what's possible, what's not possible. So it is totally worth the time to schedule it in and to mentally, to recondition yourself, create new habits, create new neural pathways for what you do want by aiming your focus on it, by reconditioning it with a bunch of other tools, that there are to elevate your mindset so that you can turn the impossible into the possible anytime you want.
Yeah, it's like this is the foundation. And when you work on this stuff, then it clicks everything else into gear, all the way up the chain, and it makes it so much easier. So it has that domino effect. When you work on the mindset, everything the workouts, the health, the relationships become easier because you have that foundation and you've really reprogrammed that subconscious mind.
Mm-hmm. It's powerful. It runs everything. Like I said, 90%.
Awesome. So good. Oh my gosh. And I know you have so much more. I feel like this interview went by so fast. And so I want to give people a way to connect with you and to take it further with you if they would like to. So do you want to tell us where we should send people after the interview?
Absolutely. So you can go to my website, stephaniekwong.com. You can sign up. I send out newsletters with a lot of tips to love yourself, elevate your mindset, and also just to live your dream life and to unleash your magic into the world. And I also have my free gifts. Do you want me to share that? Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
I have two. I just realized one of them that I emailed you earlier, but one of them, if you go to bit.ly/manifestation hyphen meditation. I've actually created a really powerful manifestation meditation where I also program in theta brainwave music to put yourself into a place where your mind does relax and your subconscious is open to receive, and then how to start to program in the things that you want. And then I also have a gift where it's 3 free days of my self-love program where you can start to learn what self-love is, what it isn't, how you block it, and then active practices on how to integrate self-love into your life. And you can get access to that at bit.ly/3-day self-love.
Awesome. And we'll have both of those linked up below. So you can click below if they can't remember. It's all good. So thank you so much, Stephanie. This was amazing. And I know everyone is going to get so much out of this interview.
Thanks. It was so fun to be with you. And bye, everybody.
Bye. Take care, everyone.
Bye.